Welcome to the first episode of Melting Pot Talks. What we're trying to do here is invite regular folks like you and me on to have an honest and open conversation with one another. Our goal is to get a ground level perspective of the most pressing issues in the world around us and talk about solutions whenever possible rather than just focusing on problems and leaving it at that. These conversations might be contentious, they might be friendly, but we will always work to keep them civil, fair, and sincere. This episode was originally intended to be a test recording with no real plans to publish. However, the discussion went so well, we felt it would be a disservice to the time and thought that both the guests put into the conversation not to make it available to the rest of you. The topic of discussion today was the recent issues with GameStop, the implications that this situation has on Wall Street, and how we trade in general nowadays. We also touch on cryptocurrency, investing in general, and the perception of access to trading and investments within certain communities, and how that can change. Being our first attempt at recording, we still have some technical kinks to work out, and you will hear some issues with the audio. And while it pains me to admit it, I take full responsibility for the squeaky chair, mouse clicking, and other unprofessional noise pollution in this recording. Both my guests today were obviously better prepared to record audio than I was. So hats off to them, and I promise I'll continue to work on the audio quality of this podcast as we produce more shows. And finally, in the spirit of transparency, although they didn't know each other before the recording, both the guests today are personal friends of mine. This isn't to take away anything from them individually or their ideas. The reason I asked them on in the first place was precisely because they are some of the voices that we want to amplify on this show. That being said, we are actively looking for more people to join us in future conversations. We're trying to have conversations on topics such as the pandemic, vaccine rollout, the upcoming impeachment trial, racial, wealth, and class differences in America and abroad, specific pieces of legislation, Supreme Court cases, and whatever else you all see as important enough to discuss. We are looking for a wide variety of people and opinions, so if you're interested in joining the show as a participant, please go to our website at www.meltingpottalks.com and follow the instructions on the homepage. Okay, that takes care of our pre-show breakdown, but we have more important things to discuss. So without further delay, let's talk about it. Hello. Today we have Stan and Elbert joining us to talk about what happened with the recent GameStop short squeeze, the reaction from Wall Street and Robinhood, and what it all means to them. Stan, let's start with you, man. What's your general take on this whole thing? How did it start, and what's going on?
All right, so my interpretation of what happened was that some guys got together, banded together, started a subreddit group, and they targeted a few stocks. One of them mainly being GameStop, and they banded together to say, "Hey, let's buy this up." Right. So by them buying up a large portion of the stock, raises the value of the stock, which ultimately hurts hedge funds because they bet against companies. They bet that the companies are going to fail, they're going to lose money, et cetera. And that's how they make their billions of dollars. And once that got out from the information from the subreddit group got out to the public, the masses started buying the GameStop stocks. So you saw that it manipulated the market in such a manner that it jumped up to $480, which is something it was overvalued as a company. So once it was overvalued, of course the hedge fund guys got really pissed off that the stock was able to be manipulated in that manner. Therefore, they went to back, started asking for all of these regulations and cutbacks, and that's when they started going to companies like Robinhood and Weeble and all these platforms that the average everyday user can put $5-10 in and invest into the stock market. So they took away the capability for people, the little people, to actually make money. And it seems like they did it to please the hedge fund guys. So, in a nutshell, they basically screwed over the little guys to help the bigger people.
Yeah, and I see it as an interesting dynamic. I grew up with the internet. I was lucky to have the internet on a laptop, in the early '90s in my house. And one thing I always saw about the internet was that there was two things about it. It had the power to learn and had the power to take you into the worst way, to the worst routes you could possibly want to go to. And this was one of those where everybody learned. And what we saw was the power of the internet spreading information and spreading positive information faster than Wall Street could just simply keep up. And so while you say that, Wall Street did kind of get kind of put pressure, what ultimately also ended up happening, and we kind of have to, give Wall Street an okay on this one, is that Robinhood and those companies just simply ran out of money. People just kept buying way too much stock. And so Robinhood, it's like a bank. I go to my bank, I can't withdraw $50 million today. They're going to tell me we don't have that much funds. So Robinhood actually had to go back in and borrow and borrow and borrow heaps of money in order for this to uphold. So I can see where people, the argument then became, well, why are all these companies, these other companies like Link Fidelity and TD Ameritrade and a few other big boys, we were still able to do it, and then eventually they came and kind of crashed things down. So it seemed like, to me, it started off as the power of the internet. Everybody learning. There was one guy who mentioned that he was going to buy 5 PlayStation 5s and put them in every room in his house, and that he was just going to retire. And he was just a poor regular person, and that's great. And then what happened? Yeah, we saw the Wall Street freak out, and then we saw pressure being put. So while I love the attack of Wall Street, I would kind of put this more on just, this was one of the most rare situations we ever saw, and no one really knew exactly how to do anything, and so there were a lot of bad decisions made all around from all different parts.
Okay. Well, let's dig into that a little bit then. Can like let's go a little bit deeper into like what your thoughts on the response for on behalf of Wall Street, Robinhood, and the traders themselves. Like, who do you guys think was in the wrong? Who do you think was in the right? What actions were justified? Which ones weren't? Like let's dive into that a little bit more then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to say who was right and who was wrong, because if you're speaking from a perspective of someone that had some money and they were like, they knew what they were doing with the stock market and was like, hey, this stock just hit, it's at $60 and it's rising because of what these guys did over here. I'm missing out on potentially thousands and thousands of dollars that could benefit me, right? So, as far as Robinhood and Wall Street and the regulations that they put on the purchase of these stocks, yes, I mean it sucks. But I also can look at the other side of that coin too, because you did have a bunch of people just putting large amounts of money with the volatility of that specific stock being so high, they could have lost everything in like that. I mean, a lot of people lost thousands of dollars because it went from 300 and something dollars all the way down to like $60 or $50, like just today or something like that, or within the week. So it's it's a damned if you do and damned if you don't situation to me. In my eyes, it's like I can see the good that they did by regulating it, but also in my eyes, I was ready to buy a whole bunch of stuff and I was so, so I was a little upset. So I, I agree with both approaches that were taken. I mean, well, the regulations that were taken to a certain extent, but I also feel for the little guys that lost out on a major potential to change some of their potential life circumstances.
See, and that's a definitely a tricky situation with those guys. It's when was the right time for them, and that's part of the education of the internet, to where they weren't too into the stock market, which we'll kind of get into what reforms need to be made, and what we can do. That's going to be something I want to talk about later. But we also got to remember that this started with a scheme by hedge fund managers to get to basically take advantage of GameStop. And then it makes me think, well, what is their end game? What was their goal in this? We just had the PS5 come out. We just had the Xbox come out. Was there some plan for them to come in and then take GameStop. And I mean, because if you think about it, there's potential for that kind of everything is going digital, but there needs to be some sort of some sort of hub for the content to be sold. So yeah, GameStop, the in and out traffic isn't coming in, but the online is where I think these guys, and I think the Mets owner was one of the ones that lost a whole bunch of money. Seems like so when you look at that, I don't feel bad for them at all. These hedge fund multi-billionaires, they have money. They have hidden money in accounts that we don't even know. So yeah, they would have lost some money. The little guy, he had a tough break. Some people got rich. Some people learned a tough lesson and did lose a lot of money. And it also did end up. What ended up also happening was you saw. I don't know if you guys had Dogecoin to the moon. I don't know if any of you got on that rally. Foreman, did you? I got on that rally. Yep, I'm on the Dodge. So it opened up more ventures, and it got people more and more into it. So I see the hedge funds. I'll start with the hedge funds who had this idea to attack a company, and they just got caught. They just got caught by the little man at Wall Street bets, and now the whole world knows how their game is played. So I say power to the little people.
So on that though, do you think there's any responsibility because now, I mean, this thing isn't over yet, right? But now, like, that stock has dropped back to, last time I looked, it was at like 58 bucks, $57. We should probably look that up. But so is there any responsibility for the people who are pumping this stock up on the Reddit side with, were they giving proper warnings to potential investors who are just trying to get on and make a quick buck, that maybe their position was secure and they were going to jump out and make their 5 figures or 6 figures or whatever, but it seems like there was still a lot of people left holding the bag here. So is there some responsibility on the side of the Redditors for this too?
I think those guys are going to lean towards the free speech aspect. They didn't necessarily tell people, "Hey, go buy this stock." They put the information out there, and they said their piece, and they pretty much left it up to everyone's interpretation. But it was so clear for people to go buy the stock that everybody just they got that information. It was like, okay, I'm gonna go buy GameStop. So they're gonna try to hem them up in the courts, I'm sure, for that. But I think they have a great chance of just skating by, because if there was no malicious intent for them to have people pump up the stock just so they can pull out, then I think they'll be fine.
What I would wait to see is what happens with the Fed. What I would wait to see is what happens with the Fed, and if there's any response from them. They've from what I can tell right now, they've been kind of quiet on that. So maybe they are just gonna let this one fly by. But that'll be I'm really interested in seeing once the high of all this action comes down. Let's wait. Let's hear June, July. Let's see what kind of regulations once the Biden administration gets settled in. I would not be surprised if there are some rules written, because we all know that we don't want to get in between wealthy people and their money, and they do have a lot of connections. So I'll be very interested to see what regulation, and that's something I'll be following up on for sure.
Yeah, I think they'll have quite a few regulations in place, because they damn sure don't want it to happen again. Because, like you said, you don't want to mess with rich people's money like that, and they literally lost billions within hours. So that's something that they can't afford. I mean, I'm sure they can afford it, but they damn sure don't want it to happen again to them in the near future. But it also is kind of a kick in the dick to the little guys, you know what I'm saying? Or these company owners, like the people that do own GameStop, like they were betting on them to fail. That's how they make their money. They were betting on them to just like go out of business, boom, gone. So um yeah, it's going to be very interesting in the coming months, probably even within the next year. And then I think they're also going to start digging more into the whole crypto side, because people basically created a currency that's, it's traceable, I guess. I mean, especially if you're doing it through an app or whatever else, they're gonna submit the tax documents. But um, when the feds don't dive into funds, it's unheard of. That's why they're trying to stop Swiss accounts and all these accounts where these people can't, the U.S. can't access these people's financial statements, so, or the Cayman Islands or whatever else. So I don't even know if Jeff's going to be in trouble in the near future with that one. They're really digging into that. So I can see, like, within the next, like you said, the next 6 months to a year, they're going to have a bunch of regulations that's going to potentially stop this from happening again, and ensure that the people that back those entities, the rich hedge fund owners, stay happy.
But but now but now could there actually also be where, some law like that could get thwarted to where, there's you know this story might actually not die down because there'll always be, those Wall Street bets guys and guys on the internet, they're always watching those stock markets. And so I could also see if some hidden regulation, some rule comes in, the government's transparent with a lot of this kind of stuff. You can go and see, whatever the government does, it's right there. So I also would want to see if there's going to be some people who kind of watch this, and then if there is some action and some things trying to be done to help out, then you know, you might see a pushback on that may actually, you know, kind of scare them a little bit and say, okay, wait, maybe we won't go through with any kind of legislation. But I would like to get your thoughts still on Bitcoin and all the other cryptos that caused that happened of all this. What did you think about the rise? Do you think that people should also be as wise jumping from the cryptocurrency, knowing how volatile that is, or should they kind of hold longer than that and just this was more of a quick get rich scheme with GameStop?
Um, with the crypto, like, I kind of look at it. I mean, the way that I look at investing is kind of different. Also, like, I don't put in money that I need like right now. If I'm gonna need that money within 6 months or even a year, I'm not gonna put that into the stock market. So like you mentioned, doggy corn, dodgy, whatever. I forget
Dogcoin.
how you say it. Yeah, DOGE for anybody that wants to look it up.
Yeah, DOGE coin. Yeah.
Yeah. So the way that I looked at it, I was like, you know what? Bitcoin was less than a penny once upon a time. Let me go ahead and throw $100 in here. I
Hmm.
saw that $100 turn into 200 bucks, and I was like, oh man, I should probably just get my money, because I know how volatile this stuff is.
Hmm.
But I was like, whatever. I put another $50 in there. I ended up with like 44,000 um, uh, dodgy coins or whatever, and it was just sitting there. And then I started seeing it, like, once all the stop stuff started happening. I started seeing it rise, and then everyone was like, "Oh, get it to a penny," because I bought it at point 0.003 cents. They was
Hmm.
like, "Oh, let's just get it to a penny. Get it to a penny." Seen that thing plus $1,000. I
Is that
was
like
up a
43
thousand
cents
dollars.
now?
Yeah, I was up $1,000 like that. I was like,
Hmm.
whoa, what is this? So I sold half of it and was like, oh, let me pocket 500, because that, at least I got what I put in. It's like going to the
Hmm.
casino. You know what I'm saying? You want to leave with what you came with, but I
Hmm.
left with a little more, and um, I just let the rest sit. And next thing you know, I'm up another 1,500, and then I sold some of that and bought more, and I'm sitting at like 30,000 now, just sitting. And if that hits a dime, like, I've made quite a bit of money just off of chump change, the money I'd blow at restaurants for 6 months.
Yeah.
Um, so my take on it is, I think if you don't necessarily need that money like right then and there, I would, because I mean it's a gamble, yes, but like I said, Bitcoin started at nothing, and look at it now. Like, and I kick myself in the butt all the time about Bitcoin, because I and Tesla, because I was in Iraq making like 200 grand a year, and people were buying Tesla for $20. And he was like, oh yeah, I bought it. So when it went up to $100 for them, they sold all theirs. They thought they made it. We're good. It's like, man, could you imagine if you would have kept 1,000 of those shares that you sold, you know. So, but I was around when Bitcoin was nothing. I was around when it was like $5,000, $7,000, and nine. I was like, it can't go any higher than that. And then next thing you know, it's 40.
Yeah,
So like,
yeah.
I feel dumb, because I had that type of money and I could have invested it, but I didn't. I wasn't educated enough, and that's the issue. Is that I know in Mississippi and Indiana, where I went to high school, we weren't taught anything that in our economics class, the stock market, and how you should invest. And I think that's going to be part of the solution. Is like education to the stock market and to investing is definitely one of those things that could definitely help a lot of people that ended up bad in this situation here from GameStop.
I in Foreman, did you have Mr. Milton in high school?
I did.
Stock? Did you do that stock with Yahoo?
Well, I remember we did a unit that we were supposed to like go through and we had like $1,500 in fake money and invest it and see what it would have done. I know I lost all my money. I
tell you
that
this. That was when
That's why I don't play the stock market right now.
Let me tell you, Krispy Kreme was at that time. That's when Krispy Kreme had come out, and it was Krispy Kreme back. And so I was like, whatever. So I threw all my money into Krispy Kreme, right, in that thing, right? And then the stock split and took off. And that was like after we had graduated from high school and everything. And then but we still had access to the thing because it was on our personal like email account. So I looked at it and I had like quadrupled my money just from just doing nothing with the Christmas. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe this stock. So that was my first, so you are right. I do wish that in high school and more, I kind of feel like when we were growing up, it was more, don't want to be in finance. You just want to be in business. It was business. It wasn't necessarily finance. It was just business.
Yeah.
You go to school, study, get a business degree. It's like, well, what in business? There's so many different kinds, of business. So that education, was definitely lost. And I had, I definitely, I'll always try and warn people, if they ever take out any more student loans, when I went to grad school, I took out student loans, and it was in 2008. And the stock market was at 4,800 or whatever it was back then. And I told myself, I'm like, man, I should have just thrown all that loan money just into the market. It would have just gone up. Instead of buying, whatever I bought and having a good time. And now I am paying huge amounts of money. If I would have invested that money, I might have actually been able to pay off my loans but that's a very dangerous thing to do.
Well, and that's where I was going to go. So we're ready to jump into the next section, but I think that's a good dovetail here. Is we kind of started small. We're talking about Robinhood and GameStop with this specific issue, but what implications does this have from a 50,000 foot view? So how much of this is hindsight being 2020, and how do you mitigate that risk, and how realistic is it for the average person to get in to this financial realm of stocks and trading shares? Does the almost democratization of the stock market now that we're seeing through social media, through apps like Robinhood, what impact do you think that has for kind of the more of the general population to have access to this?
I see a big impact because, and you mentioned, penny stocks. What has already been happening for a while is that there's been more and more talk about these penny stocks and as a way of people to kind of learn and get in. And so what this was, in my opinion, is something that can be a huge jump off point for people to start saying, okay, wait, I saw that I was able to invest, $50, and 5 hours later it was $500. That's wow. So if it happens on this small of a level, that might pique people's interest into, well, what happens if I invest more and more and more? So we might see more people getting involved in the stock market, in learning about it. But I would just hope that, what might happen is that you might see more people set up for failure. I think it's going to make more people just interested overall in the market, and and more involved in those small stocks, the cryptos that are trading. So I think that's the future. Is more people are going to be invested now. Is it going to be smart? That's something we'll talk about, and how we would do it. That's the different question.
Yeah, definitely the interest is there, man. It's all over the news. It's in people's faces. It's all on social media. Everywhere you go, you see a stock meme.
Now
You
let
know,
me let me let me, let
okay.
me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question real quick. If it wasn't as big on the news, do you think they would still be going? Like I personally think like the media kind of killed the story.
Um, they yeah, I can see that. I can see that they definitely tried to kill the story. Um, but social media is that tool. It's the ultimate marketing tool. It's something that, like I said, one famous person puts out a meme about GameStop. Guess what? It's a wrap.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, let Kevin Hart post something about GameStop. Everybody will
Elon
buy
Musk had a
GameStop.
little dodge. He was holding up a little circle of life with the dog coin,
Yeah,
and
that's just like when Elon Musk. They was like Elon Musk was kind of part of the push
mm-hmm,
for that crypto. Was that he said something about getting it to $1 or something like that, or whatever he posted, and you started seeing the market adjust due to what he said. The market can be manipulated by expectation or just word of mouth. Um, and that's what's funny is that these hedge fund guys are so pissed off. It's like, oh, they manipulated the market. It was like, okay, well, you guys manipulate the market all the time. You could put
mm-hmm,
out a press story about a company and something bad. I mean, especially if it's something negative, and that can tank the shares of a company. And guess what? You're making billions, but you're mad when the little guy does the same thing and now he's making the millions or whatever else. I don't think none of those guys made billions, but they definitely made some millions.
mm-hmm.
And you're mad at them for doing the same thing or using your own tricks of the trade to make money. So yeah, it's definitely sparked the interest of a lot of people because it is in everyone's face right now. Um, and having applications like Weeble and Robinhood hook people up, I think it's great because having Weeble, they were giving out like, hey, we'll give you like 14 stocks if you get 3 people to sign up. And I ended up getting a bunch of stocks in the beginning that were like plug power. They were like $5. If you look at that thing now, it's worth like 65. And Robinhood was the same.
Yeah.
So I think by them doing that is giving people, it's piquing people's interest as well. And once you see middle class or lower class person is if they start seeing money like, hey, this is an opportunity or a way to make money, they're gonna do whatever it takes to make that money because sometimes they feel like, hey, I have no choice. You either gonna have me out here robbing, stealing, selling drugs or whatever else, or I can learn something else. I can channel my energy elsewhere. And this, I mean, like I said, I wish they taught this in school so that these kids could actually have a better approach or even just a better chance at a better quality of life earlier versus, hey, I got to be 35 to get a job at Amazon to live good. They can say, hey, I'm 20 years old. I invested in the stock market ever since I was 10. My allowance, I put it in acorns or I put it in I would get paid in with Cash App and I would just put it over in the stock market or whatever else. So yeah, it's I think it's good. I think this is a good time. Like I think this is a good lesson there's a good lesson that came out of this, and people are picking up on it like, hey, this is something that I need to do for my future, which is invest in it.
I mean, the paradigm is shifting here, though, right? Because the stock market traditionally has been more on that like upper middle, upper class person who's even able to dip their toe in and make moves here. Now that we have these apps, do you think that the trends are still going to be there in order? Do you think that people are still going to be able to make enough money in the long term? Like right now, it's still kind of a niche industry, right? It's still kind of a novelty. But say this catches on and this is, more of a ubiquitous um horizontal kind of dispersal of funds. How do you think that that's going to affect the profitability of the stock market at all. Do you and do you think that that's going to how do you think that's going to affect the volatility of the stock market?
So I think that people will have. I think that. Well, can you like I know on like Robinhood and those kind of apps, you can buy like a percentage of stock.
Mhm.
Like I can
Yeah.
just spend like if I want to buy Amazon stock, I can buy $100 worth of Amazon stock. Correct.
Mhm.
So I think that way of stock purchasing, I might I would say you see more of that because that doesn't take as much buying power. I can go on Robinhood right now. I can go on TD Ameritrade, put $200 and buy some shares, and watch it grow. You don't have to. People are going to be learning. You don't have to go and buy major amounts of shares. You can do things at a level that will still give you a solid return. Fractional, that what it's called. So fractional stocks. Yeah, so you can buy fractional stocks. So that's what where I can see the new trend going. More and more people being interested in that kind of stock buying, knowing that they don't have to spend the full $2,000 on one share. I can spend $400 and still go, and then hey, once a month 400 equates one share. Okay, now I buy the full. Where I go from there. What do you think, Stan?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, being able to do the fractional is amazing. So that's why I said like these kids can get, hey, I got paid $20 for mowing grass. I have an application on my phone called Greenlight. So it's for my kids, and that's how I give them allowance every 2 weeks or whatever else. And they have the capability to say, hey, I want to put this portion of my allowance in the stock market. So just having that availability, from those apps is definitely going to keep a lot of people's interest because the stock market, like you said, Chris, it's like it was for like a niche. It was for a certain different demographic. Just speaking frankly, back in the gap, it wasn't for a lot of people that look like myself or this gentleman here. It wasn't. It was like never heard of stock market or whatever else in the African American communities, and that's why I said like it's super unfortunate that it's not taught in schools, because believe me, like like poor people, lower class people, they are some of the ultimate hustlers. If you teach them something, they're going to exploit it the best way that they can. I mean, I don't mean exploit in the negative aspect. I mean, they're going to learn it, they're going to master it, and that's just it. But when you don't have that in your face, you don't know, like you don't have that uncle that was like, hey, you should put $20 in the stock market on IBM. Like you don't have that because they didn't get taught that. So um by us having that thrown in, it's like pretty much thrown in our face now. It's like, hey, this is here, and these companies and these entities are just saying like, dude, it's as easy as you attaching it to your acorns to your bank account, and all the change that's left over, it rounds it up and automatically puts it in the stock market for you. Like they're creating different approaches to it that makes it easy, that makes it like you don't have to think about it. You know what I'm saying? And
Cell phone.
yeah, like, and yeah, your cell phone.
Yep.
Like before, you to buy stocks, you had to go to a bank.
Call somebody actually and
Yeah,
make a
you had to
trade.
call somebody.
Yep.
Yeah, you had to be on the line with a broker or
Mhm.
whatever else, or you had to call a bank, or to buy bonds and all that stuff. And now you can do all of that stuff from your phone. You have a computer in your hand at all times, and that's what makes it easy. I mean, we're living in a great era. You know what I'm saying? Because all of us grew up when that wasn't possible, before the computer came along or whatever else, before Napster and all that jazz. That was my jam back in the day. All that illegal
I
music I
used to I
downloaded.
used to
Didn't
set the
tell nobody.
downloads and then go to school. I would set the
Yeah,
downloads,
Yeah.
I'm right there with you, Albert. I
downloads in
was
the
just
morning,
I was just thinking the same
head
thing.
off to school, come back at lunch, more downloads, come back.
Yeah.
Man.
We listening.
Yeah, those were the days. but yeah, definitely a great time to be in, and people will definitely be way more interested now that they see the potential. And that's the thing. It's like you're giving me hope. There's some hope here. Cool. I'm cool
Hmm.
with that. But you'll also always have your skeptics, and there's still people out here in the world that don't trust banks. So they don't even have a bank account. They're like, hey, well, I'll go to the check cashing place, and I want all my money in my hand right now. So
Yeah.
um, should be good, man. It's a good transition.
So, yeah, Albert, do you got anything before we transition? Because I think that's a good place to dovetail. But I just want to make sure I give you a spot here to follow up on that if you want.
No, it's a good thing for everybody because we're it it's good publicity because nowadays kids can see, there was one story of a 10-year-old kid who made like $200, so this is a positive for
Hmm.
the people, definitely.
Okay, then branching onto that, what do you think? We were talking about regulation earlier, right? And the potential for what the Fed's going to do about this whole situation. So I think that kind of brings up two questions for me. Again, we're looking at the bird's eye view here, right? How do you think we should proceed as a society, as a community, and then how do you think we are going to proceed?
Well, as a what we should do is we should take this as a learning lesson and encourage more and more investing and more teaching of finance and mathematics to children, more and more encouraging them to be aware of the market and how to make money and how to invest. But unfortunately, this is America. We know that we live on a 24-hour news cycle, and so while this still has some media legs, by March, most people will forget this even happened, and then that's when, unfortunately, any kind of regulations can then be snuck in. So, I would love to see more education and more learning, but that I'm sure will happen on some level to a degree that obviously will happen, but not as much, you know, as it will. But we got to be positive and take what we can and continue to educate, work with ourselves, work with our friends and our communities to let them know that, hey, this is really what we should be focused on going forward.
Yeah, definitely. Baby steps, one thing at a time. As far as regulations, though, what they should do, nothing. Technically, you shouldn't do anything. You should just be like, "Hey, hedge fund guys, you made a bet and you lost. It's not like they did anything illegal. Like I said, they didn't. I don't feel that they did anything malicious or by telling people or by telling people, hey, go buy this. It's just so they can cash out. I don't think that was the intent there. So I mean, I really feel like they'll probably get off for that. Just hey, free speech. So uh, I mean, there's loopholes in everything, and the government should, the federal government should understand that because, I mean, how morally correct or ethically right is it for a hedge fund guy to be like, this company's going down. I'm hoping that whoever owns this company is broke by the end of the year so I
True.
can get billions. You know what I'm saying? So it's 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 one of those situations that like you just got to look at it. I mean, I think that they should look at it for what it is. Like, hey, you lost, you lost this round. Hey, you live to fight another day. Pick another shitty company that you think is going to go down and make your billions that way. But um, it's definitely going to take some time for you know that education piece for everyone for I mean it's got to start with us as far as for the kids because the schools are not going to do it. It's going to the parents are going to have to take that into their own hands. Kids these days are very intelligent, and they're able to decipher a lot of information really fast. So um, I feel that they're going to step more into it because I do see a lot of kids talking about, oh, I'm going to invest in this. And I think that's the greatest thing that, I mean, especially if they look like my little kids, you know, because like I said, when I was a kid, that was unheard of. Never seen it, never heard it, didn't know really what the stock market was even as I went through high school. I mean, I knew that it existed, but I didn't know how to buy it, who to contact to buy it, how to give them money to buy it. Like I knew none of that. But now, like I said, these kids know everything. It's right in their hands. They can download an app and there it is. Boom. Merry Christmas. I may or may not be rich by the end of the year.
Yep.
So, yeah, in
Yeah.
due time.
Yeah. Baby steps. A lot of
Yeah.
times, people get frustrated on another topic. When you talk about progressive change in America, people get really frustrated at how long it takes. Oh, it's taking forever. We need this change now. And it's like Proposition 8 in California only passed, and that was the same-sex marriage. That was 12 years ago. And think about that. In the United States of America, 12 years is how long that law has been in existence. And we've had this country for almost 300 years. So things take time in this country, but we just got to keep fighting, keep educating, keep working, and it starts with the youth. Let them know, and get them
Yeah.
educated, and it'll take off.
Yeah, I think it's just going to take, pardon my frankness, it's just a lot of old people dying off, man, because this old ideology and thought process. Uh, I mean, because you got to think about it, the people making these rules and regulations on everything, these are like 70-year-old
Mm-hmm.
dudes and ladies
Mm-hmm.
and whatever else. Like, hey, let's get some fresh faces in here. Let's get some people that's actually been through something. Besides, hey, my pappy owned 14 of y'all, and had y'all picking the cotton. You know what I'm saying? And it's gonna take that evolution as well, which is unfortunate. Like, hey, old people gotta die, but
Mm-hmm.
it happens. But in order to get those fresh faces and those fresh ideals in there, that's what needs to happen, because like you look at Congress right now, these people have been there 40, 30, 40, 50 years.
I think they were saying Mitch McConnell, someone of what was her name? Feinstein, I think. When her term expires, she's gonna be 92 years old.
Right. Yeah.
And she
I mean,
just
you
filed for re-election, and they were like, wait, but they were like, okay, no, you just kind of have to do that because she had some money tied up in politics. But still, it's like, come on now, that
yeah,
should not
it's
be. I didn't vote
ridiculous.
for her, so she, De Leon.
Yeah, but you get so much of that though, and that's the thing. It's like those are the people helping make those rules and regulations. So, guess what? Most of them are filthy rich. So, guess who they're going to side with? The filthy rich
Yeah, and
every
then
time.
and it's like you try and even you try and discuss like we'll take like student loan debt relief.
Hmm.
You know, you talk to when you talk to when you talk to a senior citizen about student debt relief, they look at you like what? Like
Right.
waive it, and it's like, well, how much did you pay for your college?
$30.
My mom tells me that when she had a part-time job, she bought a car and went to college full time, and she paid for it with a part-time job. So it's like, and then when you kind of explain, well, so one thing we can also do is the way we explain these things to them, and on a personal level, I think that's the best way that we can really, get them to see. And it was like, no, mom, like, we like a dentist is going to debt $250,000, to
Right.
be a dentist, and it's like, but how you're making, it's like, but you're paying for the, on interest. And so once they start, hearing the realities and seeing it face to face, then their eyes will really start opening. But yeah, we are being held down by, the greatest generation who, yeah, they did a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
but
I don't know what youth juice they have, but shit, give me some. I mean, I'll take it. I mean, if I can live to be 99 plus tax and
Mhm.
still able to even think coherently enough to
Mhm.
make a sound decision about anything,
Mhm.
sign me up, because it just sucks basically, because like I said, you don't think they're, I mean, do you honestly feel that they're thinking outside of 1980
No.
or 70s or whatever? They probably like, hey man,
But
your
regardless, it's like
your
why?
water fountain used to be around the corner, but I ain't gonna say
Mhm.
nothing. So
Mhm. It's like why?
I'm gonna
Why?
let you
Really?
slide. So yeah, it's just yeah. To me, it's that like those people need to be removed, in order
Mhm.
to get people that have actually been through a struggle, that have had to take on that $150,000 in student debt, so they can be like, oh well, yeah, I understand why you need student relief or
Yeah.
student debt relief because I'm still paying my student loans right now.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
people can't see empathize unless they've been through it or someone directly related to them has been through it.
True.
They're like, well, pay that. And so, well, there's many
Right.
different ways and things going on. So yeah, that's definitely a discussion I've had before.
Well, how do you see the landscape of our, up and coming legislators now? I mean, we have
Oh,
there's definitely some youngins coming in. There's definitely, but
mhm.
I'm seeing them on both sides of the aisle, right? Like
Right.
I'm not just because they're in, our general age range. I'm not sure that there's a lot of people who would necessarily agree with you as far as this goes. Like they might have a little bit more in common with those people on the, on the other end of the spectrum, right?
Right, but you got to also think about where people come from. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? You get
Awesome.
somebody that's from rural Mississippi or rural Georgia or rural Alabama, of
Rural
course,
California.
or rural California, they're going to be like, "Hey, I agree with everything from the right. I don't care what is said
Hmm.
or what's passed. I agree with that because I was bred and taught this since I was a
Mhm.
child. I've always, hey, vote Republican no matter what. Don't even consider the other side. Don't even consider their ideas. Don't even
Don't even
consider,
read their ideas.
yeah, don't
Don't
do
even study
nothing.
them.
Just yeah, just vote vote red. Call it a day. Right? So you have to take a look at that also. But I think a lot of those people, once they get in those positions and they're around that, I mean, they're surrounded by people that are thinking, um, outside the box as well. That if they can become that individual that says, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna start thinking for myself a little bit."
Hmm.
They might sway the other way a little bit more. They might start thinking outside of the red box or the right box, and be able to. I mean, and even on the other side, they might be able to start thinking like, "Hey, let me think a little bit more conservative about this," because if you say that, hey, everybody should just get $2,000 checks like every 2 weeks or whatever else. I mean, you also got to think about the other side of that coin. America's basically printing money. So what's our money worth in the world? It's gonna be worth. We're gonna be chilling with Mexico. Our shit's gonna be worth like 4 cents, on the dollar. You go to Germany or you go to Paris or Spain or whatever. You got to get some euros. You're gonna be hurting
Yeah.
because our money isn't gonna be worth as much. So it's a double-edged sword. I mean, even with the younger ones now coming in, to do that, to take on those positions.
Hmm.
Yeah, and you're right. They have been, you know, told certain things, and what unfortunately what kind of disappoints me is that a lot of them do just seem to be carrying on the same. We have all these resources and we have all these such new things coming out, but a lot of people just seem to still be stuck in that past, and just whether it be
Mm.
fear or just unknown, they don't want to open themselves up and bring themselves out there to to learn about different things, and then they'll just go and try and join each side, and that's not what we want right now. But I think some of these younger politicians, um, they they're trying, but like I keep saying, it just they have they have some good things in their heart, but they have a lot to navigate through with these old timers. So I'll just say that they have a lot to wade through. So I can see somewhat, when some of these young politicians not, wanting to jump ahead too far, because it's like you still got to go in there
Right.
and follow the whole process and everything, and then wait your turn and then strike when the iron's hot. Like you
Right.
saw, like Josh Hawley, he thought his hand was hot. He thought it was time to go when it was this whole the January 6th thing.
Mhm.
he's like, well, Tom Cotton is saying, oh, he's Tom Cotton was saying, oh, the election was solved. There's nothing to worry about here. Well, he's like, well, hey, here's my opportunity to come in and try and latch on to that final Trump voter and say, no, the election, there was irregularities, and that blew up in his face.
Right.
So he did not, that was the wrong time. So they're all out there trying to find their
They'll figure it out. I think the young ones. I mean, in order to get them on the right path, you probably have to make a TikTok video or something, make a dance to it, and get them to make the right choices in their legislation or something like that. But
Start the right Reddit thread, right? I mean, we're talking billions of dollars that got thrown into play because a bunch of kids,
right,
sending memes back and forth and fucking with the establishment.
yeah, definitely. So,
I mean, that kind of brings me up to kind of our the last section that I wanted to discuss. What do you guys think that people should be doing about this? I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but like, what actionable items do you think that people should be doing? What are you guys going to be doing? And is there anything that's exciting you? We talked about hindsight being 2020, and oh man, I wish I shoulda, woulda, coulda. What are you looking at now that's that you've learned that lesson? Maybe if it's not even like a specific thing, but like a trend, or what are you looking for in the future that you're gonna keep your eye out for to jump on next?
uh, I yeah, I'll take
Go
it.
ahead.
I'll take it first. Um, as far as what should be done, like we said, like you said, we kind of already touched on that. But I mean, for rules and regulation, I don't think they should do anything. But as for me, what I plan to do is to just basically continue to educate myself on how this market potentially moves, and basically put myself in a better position to benefit from it, because I can see the potential in it, and I've made like 8 grand over the last year just from just buying little stocks here and there, and looking at, hey, well, the government is leaning towards marijuana legalization. Okay, what weed stocks are out there that may benefit directly from them saying yes to this? And I found one, and it was like 50, 60 something cents. So I was like, well, I'm gonna buy 650 of these. And I bought them, and I'm up like 300-400 bucks on it. And that was, I mean, to me, I'm doing pretty good, because it started off small, but I didn't sell it. I'm just letting that sit, because once again, it's money that I don't need this second. So therefore, it's an investment. It's sitting there. So hopefully, um, my gamble pays off. And that's what it all is. But it also boils down to education. There's no need to be putting money into a stock that probably isn't going to go anywhere. That's why I didn't put any money in GameStop initially, because I was like, man, we're going through a pandemic. Their stores are closed. What could they possibly be selling right now? Games online? Cool. Well, Amazon sells those. Walmart sells those, and Walmart's open.
But
So
did you know that video games have been one of the highest grossing industries during the lockdown?
yeah, but I still didn't expect that company, because the way that I saw their stocks tank, I was like, wow, they got to be done. They're about to be done. Like, none of their stores are open, because it is a brick and mortar store primarily. Yeah, they do have an online presence, but their online presence can easily be, beat out by Amazon easily.
But how many people have ties to the online store though? A lot of kids, like when you go to GameStop, you trade your game, they have your account, and so I think the market is there for the actual GameStop company to really thrive in the next couple of years, which is why I think this whole thing started. Because I think some hedge fund guys knew and were trying to get into the digital market, and we're
Mhm.
expecting something to happen with GameStop because most of the majority of kids go by. I go to GameStop, they have my phone number, I have a little discount. A lot of people are still tied to it, so the platform is there for them to.
Yeah, but those games are normally the physical disc for the most part, right? Or they may sell like a digital download something, but they can get that same stuff on the PlayStation Store. you know.
That's a
So
good point. That's a good point.
that was my, you know, take on it. Was like, yo, like if you're trying to go digital, how can you beat the people like Microsoft who never shut down, or how can you beat the
Mhm.
people like Sony who they have their own online platform for their games? I don't think they accept any other type of digital download. I don't think you can get a GameStop app on your PlayStation and be like, yo,
You get
let me download that. You can?
you buy it from GameStop and they give you a digital code. And then so
Okay.
when you go into like the PlayStation PlayStation Network store, you
But you
enter
still
in
have to
that
go through
code.
PlayStation.
Yes, exactly.
You still have to go
So
through
you
some.
are right. So that does make a good
Yeah,
point. That yeah. So the and that's the thing people are talking about. It's like, oh, the digital. The fact that they're going all digital is why they were really, starting to really go down. So
right. So yeah, so that was, that's like my take on it. It's just mainly to continue to educate myself and and continue to read more as much as I can on it, because I mean, if really wish I would have saw that information from that subreddit group, and hey, y'all might not be talking to me right now. I've been on the beach somewhere.
Or we talked to you from your plane or your boat,
Right. Yeah. Like, hey, man, I'm out here. What's happening?
So
Um,
I want to dig in there a little bit though. You said you want to keep educating yourself and so like what are the resources that you consistently rely on to get that education, right? Because for a lot of people, myself included, it's like I don't know where to start other than just googling stuff. But from whatever success you have had, what resources have you been looking at that you find consistently reliable to get yourself up to speed on this?
Man, I mean, to be honest, YouTube. I definitely watch a lot of YouTube videos.
Hmm.
And I also, for myself, I like to kind of read up on companies and see what these companies are doing.
Hmm.
Um, just to see like, hey, what could this company possibly be doing in the near future that may bring the stock up? For instance, Volkswagen. Volkswagen owns Audi, Lamborghini, Porsche, right? And they're all developing electric vehicles in the future. And their plan, and I don't see them having an issue with it, because guess what? There's a lot of Audis on the road. You start looking at the S3s and stuff like that, and the S5s. They're going to start making those vehicles electric
Hmm.
eventually. So Audi has a decent fan base, so they're going to take a nice um, chunk of Elon's market,
Hmm.
eventually. So my thing is, it's like, okay, well, I see that they're doing this and they're going to try to roll these cars out within the next, 2 years. Let me jump on this right now
Hmm.
and let it sit for a while, because I know that within 2 years they drop those first couple cars, it's going to jump. I mean, it may jump up, it may spike initially, and then it might try to trickle down a little bit. But if I catch anything on that spike, I'm good. I'm happy with that. Um, and that's what I do. So I also look at the companies and see what they're doing in the near future, that may benefit me personally. So that's how I get my little education. But a lot of education is either word of mouth or YouTube. And these people talk about these companies and they put out that information, the same information that I would read from a company's website. They put it out themselves. Yeah.
Over. How about you, man? Before we wrap up here, like what specific actionable things are you looking at? Moving forward, kind of with this stuff in mind, or anything for that matter.
well, I'm definitely gonna take the ideas. Start watching more YouTube videos. Start reading on more companies. I used to watch and read about the stock market and stuff like that, but then with family and kids. But now
Hmm.
you know it seems like this has reinvigorated me into wanting to do more. I always used to look at penny stocks and pot stocks and stuff like that, but I never really bought. you know and then so this is definitely making me want to really think harder about that, and all the times that I have, my hindsight, I get Bitcoin, like, in the stock market when it crashed. There's been times when, there's always dips and times to get in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd have always seemed to have always been seeing it, no, I was watching this whole thing from day one. I was like, oh, haha, these guys are messing with this, and then boom, it just blew up. It's like, oh, there was another one. So I'm tired of that. I think I'm going to try and, get more, and then Stan, you brought up a good thing about, in allowance, I got a kid that's 5 years old now, about to be six. Now we're starting on chores, so now is the time when, I'm gonna start being like, okay, little boy, you do this, I'm gonna give you some money and then we're gonna invest, and set things up. We didn't do the 529, I don't know about,
Right.
I'm not sure if he's gonna go to college. I don't know what the, the scene's gonna look like at that time. So I'm like, I can, so I think I'd rather have him just have money at the time when he's 18, 21. Just here's some money, you know, get a house, whatever you want to do. So I'm definitely gonna, for my family, really, looking more. I have when I have a 401k from a previous job that I didn't cash out, which I'm glad I didn't. Don't cash your 401ks out when you're young and you lose your job. To whoever is listening, keep that and just let that money sit. Don't touch it. So I have that, and then I also have, the I work for the state, so we have that. So I just try to make sure that I do whatever else I can on my own in terms of investing to make as much money as I can and just learn as much as I possibly can. So yeah, I definitely see it as a wake up call to me that I can't keep missing these opportunities when they keep happening, because you never know when it's going to happen again. So,
Right. Well, I think that about covers everything that I had on the agenda today. Do you guys want to? Do you guys have any last thoughts before we sign off for the day?
I'd like to give a shout out to my mom, and my pops for doing the thing that they did. No, no, man, this was great, man. It was a great conversation. I definitely appreciate, the good dialogue and the communication. I'm all about it. I definitely have a lot to learn. Um, so I mean, if you guys ever find out any information or want to know any information or talk outside of this, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm always good, happy to have those chit chats, man.
Appreciate it, Albert.
yeah, man, I had a great time. Definitely learned a lot. Definitely, would love to do this again. With some other topics. Even longer. With more people. Yeah, this is definitely fun. I like to learn. I like to hear different perspectives, and it's definitely was a good time.
I really appreciate both of you guys taking your time, sharing your insights and just being open and willing to sit here and have this conversation. Believe me, this is hopefully the first of many to come, and you guys are both welcome back on this stage anytime you please. So we're gonna shut it down here. Thanks again, gentlemen. Appreciate your time, and appreciate you guys. Later.
Have a good one.
Peace.
Good stuff.
All right, that concludes our first ever episode of Melting Pot Talks. I'd like to thank you all for sticking around and giving us a listen. I'd like to extend another huge thanks to Elbert and Stan for taking the time and having the guts to kick off this show with us. I'd also like to give a shout out to Elgin Lutz for performing many of the behind the scenes, but no less important and necessary production tasks on the show. We wouldn't be up and running without him. We look forward to next time, and remember, if you want to be a guest on the show, visit us at www.meltingpottalks.com and follow the instructions on the home screen. Until then, take care, y'all.